Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building, and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. Today's Friday, joined by the one and only Ash Epp. Ash, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I got like 6 hours of sleep last night, which was awesome because I've only gotten 3 for about 3 hours a night for about 2 weeks. So I feel like a whole new person.
Isn't it awesome when you celebrate like 6 hours of sleep?
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, I would love to go back to bed.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, it's someone in the chat said, "Happy Friday, everybody ready for the weekend?" And I'm like, yes, I am ready for the weekend.
It's going to be an exciting weekend, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Everything is shaping up. You know, yesterday we said that this weekend could be kind of the crescendo of everything, and it's shaping out to be that way. So happy Friday the frickin' 13th to everybody.
It is Friday the 13th. Yeah, and we have no kings tomorrow. We have I believe the U.S. Army's birthday. Is that right?
The 14th, yep. And
yeah, so tomorrow we have President Trump's birthday, Flag Day, the U.S. Army's birthday, the parade, right? We have this parade. Did you say no?
I said yep.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it got canceled. I'm so out of the news cycle. I'm excited to be here so you can tell me what is happening in the world. And then we have the opposition to that, the No Kings, which here in Colorado, they did a little teaser on Tuesday. They had a protest, immigration protest on Tuesday that, so the protest was we talked about this on OnlyLands on Tuesday night. The protest was right outside of the Justice Center where we were, where my trial was. So you can picture it in your head because you were there. And we were watching footage of it on OnlyLands. And I'm like, well, I'm going to be able to go see tomorrow what this space looks like, right? Does it look like it was just covered in protesters and everything? And nothing. It looked like if there was a protest, they cleaned up after themselves. The only thing that gives me any indication that what we saw on the television screen was real was the the fuck ICE, writing on the poles and stuff is like the light poles in the streets. That was consistent, but there was really no other indication that anything had happened there.
Damn. Well, yeah. Maybe these kind of their efforts were focused on particular areas to kind of instigate this weekend, and we'll see, what happens on Saturday. I don't know.
Yeah, it should be interesting. We'll be watching it. If anything big happens, we'll jump on and cover it on Badlands.
Well, I got to say this, after last night, we, as the United States of America, must do absolutely everything in our power to make sure that Canada never gets a Stanley Cup.
Yeah. This is one of our most important mandates, and Florida's really holding the line for us. I appreciate that.
Oh man, I got to go to the game last night. I'll just show you. This was the game. The goal descended into
great
overtime.
Seats at the game too.
So we had season tickets, and my wife told me, "Here's the pre-sale to get more tickets if you want to get more." So I figured they were selling like all the tickets for the game, face value. So I went and bought tickets for game 3 and game 4. And I was like, I'll sell one of the games to pay for the other game. They were already marked up. And I didn't realize that. I thought they were just that expensive. And so I bought these ones as an investment. I wanted to sell these ones for like buku money because they were third row.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. Couldn't sell them. So I was like, you know what? YOLO, you only live once, eat it. And this was the game winning or the game tying goal. So game tying goal. I think there was like 30 seconds left in the game. We were down 1. Couldn't do it in the overtime though. Third overtime in this series so far.
Yeah. What was the final score last night?
5-4, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't watch any of the game, but it, frat house of hockey fans is what I live in. So multiple times as I was writing, the brief upstairs, I hear just eruption of Y-Chrome sharing. So I know it was a good one based on the reaction of the boys in my house.
Yeah, I texted Caleb the that video, and I was like, you'll appreciate this. Not many other people I know would appreciate that. So all right. Yeah. We're not going to sit here and talk about hockey this whole time. I hope you guys got we must ensure Canada never gets a Stanley Cup. I hope you guys got that joke as all shit hit the fan yesterday. We'll get into that for sure. But first, let's go ahead and jump into our sponsor. Oh, that is not our sponsor. StreamYard. And speaking of StreamYard, I want to apologize. Yesterday, Alpha and I recorded, because I was going to the game, we recorded part 2 of our series with Nick No on, the Alan Howell Perot story and all and much more. And StreamYard in the middle of it kicked me out, wouldn't let me back in. And then I'm texting Alpha and he's like, everything's fine. I'll just finish the show. I was like, okay. And then Alpha left and he's like, I got kicked out. I can't get back in. And so when StreamYard was finally back up, I went to go see the recording and it was gone. It didn't include the show. So we did
show, the whole recording, even in the back end.
The whole show was gone. And so we had to cancel SitRep because we couldn't do it again that quick. So I apologize for that, guys.
That's messed up.
So we had a bad daily yesterday.
I was looking forward to that show too.
We're definitely doing it again.
Okay.
It's just not we couldn't get it done that quick. So, all right, guys, CB Distillery stock up sales officially live. Save up to 40% on everything. If you're struggling to sleep, dealing with daily stress, or you need relief after a tough workout, you've got to check out CB Distillery. They have got natural, plant-based solutions for just about everything. This isn't the low-quality stuff you find at the gas station or the drugstore. This is premium CBD that people swear by, myself included. I know a lot of you love CB Distillery sleep products. I personally will be stocking up on the gummies as well as some of the pet tinctures. They make it so easy to find exactly what you need. You just go to their website and you can shop by benefit, such as, sleep, stress, mood and focus, pain after workout, and even, like I said, solutions for your pets. Whether CB Distillery is already a part of your routine or you've been curious about trying CBD, now is the time to stock up and save up to 40%. Discover the healing benefits of CBD and save 40% on everything. Visit cbdistillery.com and enter promo code RUMBLE. That's cbdistillery.com, promo code RUMBLE. Not available in Idaho, Iowa, or South Dakota. All right, let's get into the news. First news of the day. Let's jump into this story right off the rip right here. The $9.4 billion Doge cuts have passed the House. USAID losing a big chunk of funding. The corporate, corporate broadcasting board or whatever it is. The
Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. The ones that fund PBR and NPR, they lost $1 billion. Good.
Yeah, and those guys fund. So a big part of this is just the anatomy of corruption, in my opinion. The way that a big part of that funding works through Corporation for Public Broadcasting is that they give the funds to the local stations, local media stations, rural, and the reason that they always state for why we need this is rural. Communities need radio, right? They need public radio, public broadcasting. but they give the aid funding to the local broadcast, the local stations, local papers, and then those guys buy programming from NPR, through that. So NPR is like, we don't get that kind of funding, and it's like, yeah, you do. You just there's just a pass through before you get it.
Right. So on yesterday's daily with Alpha, he had baited me, or he thought he was baiting me on Twitter, and he had said, "Oh, look, Brian, your boy Massey voting no on the Doge cuts." And I looked at it and I'm like, wait, if Massey votes no, he always justifies on his Twitter. He always justifies why he voted no. And so I went over there and I had to comment back to Alpha before the show. And I said, please don't try and gotcha me on Badlands Daily when I bring this up, because you're going to look bad. And sure, he didn't see it and he tried to gotcha me. Thomas Massey did post the 4 Republicans who did vote no on the bill. And that is Representatives Amoti, Fitzpatrick, Maliotakis, and Turner. And I cannot for the life of me understand why you would vote no on a straight item Doge cut. Unless
I think they probably want the whatever the thing is being cut, they probably want that thing. In the $9.4 billion, there's something in their districts that they want and they're pissed about.
I don't know. Maybe they feel they live in like rural districts and they still need the propaganda. I mean, the public broadcasting. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so we'll keep an eye on that bill. It goes to the Senate now. It should pass. I think it only needs a 50 vote majority. And what I want to see in the Senate is if you have any Democrats that vote for it. You might get like a Fetterman or somebody that's kind of trying to stay on the good graces of everybody that votes for it. But ultimately, I think it'll be party lines.
Yeah, I feel like this is the equivalent of saying in your household budget, you buy a $8 coffee from Starbucks every day, and you're going to do that, once less a month.
Mm-hmm.
So like 30 days a month, you're going to still buy 28, 29, $8 coffees but you're just going to drop one of them. And even that might be too much for what's in $9.4 billion.
I think you're being way too generous with that. I think it would be more like buying an $8 coffee once a day for an entire year. And rather than skipping one day, you just skip one time. You skip that espresso shot for 4
Yeah, it's better. That's better for sure.
So a whole year of coffee, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to save some money and I'm going to skip the espresso shot just today. Just
this one day out of 365. We're going to not even the whole coffee, just the extra shot. That's an excellent point, Brian.
And that does bring up a representative that I'm growing more and more fond of, and that is Representative Eli Crane out of Arizona 2nd, who said breaking the House passed the first rescissions package, cutting billions in taxpayer funding from biased media, USAID, and globalist institutions. This must be a first step, not a celebration. Stay engaged, keep up the pressure, and push your representative for more cuts. I like that.
Yeah, the cuts. Push for all the cuts. Also, if you're reaching out to your representative to push for cuts, it'd be great if you could mention that they should change the rule that doesn't let you stream federal court.
Yes.
That's set by Congress. They're the ones that can change it. They won't. Just FYI, because it's been asked of them before. But maybe if we all contact all of our representatives and tell them just how much we hate them, maybe it'll change some hearts and minds.
Tell them you'd love them if they did that.
We will stop hating you if you let us stream federal court.
And to Ash's favorite phrase of all time, we want them streamed because otherwise
democracy dies in darkness.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the Ritz says, I'm Starbucks free, no liberal toxosis here. Yeah, I think most of us are. It was the reason that I use Starbucks as the example is for the $8 coffee part.
No green sea witch.
No green sea witch. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm partial to Dunkin' Donuts personally. If I'm not making coffee at home, which I almost always do. So like weekends, I'll go out and grab coffee for me and Christy before she wakes up. And Dunkin' Donuts is fire, man.
Yeah.
Fire coffee. Great. Ash, you know what? I didn't even think about this. Can you give us an update on the trial? Because we had Halderman yesterday, right?
Yeah. That was weird. It was real weird. Hang on one second. I had to clear my throat. So yesterday at the end of trial, the attorneys for Mike Lindell said that they're thinking about proffering for one more witness this morning. Speculation that was Eric Coomer, also going to be Eric Coomer, recalling him. Also speculation that it could be recalling Mike Lindell to the stand. I don't know if they're going to do it. I think they're probably not going to have any more witnesses. The judge is really wanting to get this to the jury so that they have time to deliberate before the weekend. But if that happens, then there will be one more witness this morning before the defense rests. The plaintiffs rested yesterday after Halderman, and that was Peter Kent was the defense expert that was presented. And so they rested. So then they'll do this morning, defense will rest at some point. And then they'll do they'll charge the jury. So that's where they read the jury instructions to the jury. The judge reads the jury instructions to the jury and gives them the contours of the law, the rules, the parameters that they need to use to decide the case. Once that happens, then they'll do closing arguments. So we'll have the plaintiffs first, then the defense. I think the plaintiffs might have, they might be able to reserve time to go, to say a little bit more after the defense. That varies from state court to federal court, and I'm not entirely sure how it's going to work in this case. After that, the case will be with the jury and will be in deliberation, waiting for an answer. So
what was the gist of Halderman's testimony?
Oh. The gist of Halderman's testimony is our electronic voting systems, have a significant number of vulnerabilities. We know this, and the elections community and the national academies are working always to shore up against those. This is his, before cross-examination, his testimony. To shore up and guard against those vulnerabilities being exploited. But there is no evidence that any of those vulnerabilities have ever been exploited. And we know, of course, they haven't looked, but that was the assertions that he was making when he was presented with Williamson, Tennessee, Michelle Long Spears in DeKalb County. It was Antrim County, Michigan. It was always human error. So Antrim County, Michigan, it was human error because they changed the race, like added or removed a candidate that messed with the ballot configuration, and that caused an issue because the machines they changed like some of the configurations to be correct, but they didn't do all of them, and because they didn't do all of them, it caused, the top line vote, like the order of the votes as the machine read them were different, but it was because of the ballot configuration, and that's human error. He said the same issue in DeKalb County with Michelle Long Spears. And apparently Halderman was involved in that case. He advised Michelle Long Spears when she challenged. I didn't know that, but he said it on the stand, and that was the same thing, that a candidate had dropped out and they fixed the configuration of the ballot. The people, right, fixed the configuration of the ballot in some of the machine areas, but not all of them, and that caused the error. And Michelle Long Spears is one of the most egregious examples, right, because she was in third place, and then it ended up changing the outcome of the race. Human error. He talked about the Arizona audit and, that ended up with Joe Biden getting 99 more votes. that lie, Brian, you and I were covering that when it happened. This was before Badlands, before we were on Badlands. I don't even think you were on Badlands at that point when that came down. Yeah. Yeah. But that, folks might not remember this, but that decision was leaked. Right. It was leaked out with the 99 more votes, and 90 before the Senate hearing. So the Arizona audit team could present their results to the Senate and lay out all of the problems, right? More votes than voters, mail-in ballots that came in that didn't go out. There was a whole categories, and we covered all of them back. We covered that entire presentation to the Senate, but all of that doesn't matter because there was 99 more votes for Biden than there was at the start. And so this is all captured in my article, which is on my Substack, The Interstate Conspiracy to Defraud the American People. And that, like, all of that data, all of the things they found in the code, all of the things that they were able to identify from what they got, it wasn't 99 more votes, right? It was a serious question that implicated tens of thousands of votes because of chain of custody issues, issues with being able to validate and verify the votes. But that didn't matter because the story that came out on the news wire that was picked up by all of the news outlets was, well, Biden got 99 more votes. And that went before the Senate results were even presented. That went around the world. That was the new accepted truth. It was another very fine people kind of moment where everybody just accepts that assertion. It's not true. You have to have real lawful American votes, as Chris would say, right? So that came up, and that was enraging. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to hit on those two things. First, the DeLong, Michelle Long Spears. And did they ask him at all about down ballot races in that contest?
It came, so not directly, not in the Michelle Long Spears one, no, but generally down ballot races, it was kind of avoided by the plaintiffs and by Halderman. They really focused on the presidential contests.
This is something that I've wanted to ask Halderman for a long time, because when I was digging into Antrim, and I knew Bill Bailey very well, rest in peace, very good friend of mine. I knew Matt DePerno that was handling that case, and I got really into that case. And then when Michelle Long Spears popped up a year later, I started going through that, and what Halderman alleged happened in Antrim made no sense compared to what happened in DeKalb County, Georgia, because in Antrim, when they figured out the discrepancy, it affected all the down ballot races, all of them, the Senate, the House, everything. But then the same thing they said. Is
that according to the ASOG report?
No, this is according to the numbers, the results from the recounts.
Okay.
Like big time numbers were flipped. I mean, at one point, President Trump was losing in one district to Rocky de la Fuente or something, an unknown independent candidate. And so I've always said, the way that the system is set up, first off, it's an absolutely atrocious design. Absolutely atrocious. We've talked about it on Why We Vote, and maybe next week we'll talk about it again because it's relevant again. But the bottom line is I believe in DeKalb County that there were more down ballot races that were impacted, but because it was a Democrat primary and you're kind of like the same team but against each other temporarily, like this facade, nobody bitched about it except Michelle Long Spears, because she had the personal attachment to when her votes weren't counted at all in her own district where she and her husband voted. And nobody ever looked at any down ballot races. 1,800 ballots popped up out of nowhere that are still unexplained. But how did he explain the erroneous code as human error?
Yeah, so erroneous code in Williamson, Tennessee didn't come up with Halderman. That one wasn't asked of him. But all of the things that did come up, the most explosive moment, and then we'll talk about his cross-examination. The most explosive moment, actually, this was sort of part of his cross-examination, so we're already there, was when we were talking about Alabama. In Alabama, there are 4,000 people that vote that are over 100 years old that voted. And so the Chris Kucherov is, laying these questions out, kind of leading Halderman to that point. And he says, there's 4,000 people over the age of 100 years old in, whatever district I think it was the whole state of Alabama. And Halderman goes on this long diatribe about voter roll hygiene. And yes, we have real problems. Listen, the key takeaways that managing large databases is hard. That, it really, and so then the follow-up question was, there's 4,000 people over the age of 100 in Alabama that voted. And Halderman says, so what? Yeah.
What?
And the gallery now, like the gallery has been silent this whole trial. Is very respectful, right? We were in my trial, the gallery was rebuked a few times, right? Throughout the trial, a few times they had to be told by the judge to shut up. Yeah. Hat tip Brian. In this that nobody has, they haven't been had to be rebuked at all. And I wasn't there for 2 days, but I haven't seen anything that suggests the gallery said when he said, "So what?" It was a loud eruption from the gallery. Everybody was shocked. Like what? And like, it was this massive loud. The judge, to her credit, she allowed the attorneys to finish. She didn't say anything to the gallery at the time. She allowed the attorneys to finish, exited the jury, and then very kindly said to the jury, "You can't do that," or said to the gallery, "You can't do that in front of the jury. We can't give them additional information in the middle of the trial." I thought, honestly, because of how the eruption was, I thought that she was going to clear the gallery at that point. It was like people were like, "Holy shit. You're going to say it doesn't matter. You find 4,000 people that voted that are over the age of 100 in a single state, and it doesn't matter." And his point, Halderman's point is, well, they're not really over 100. It's that they have terrible voter roll hygiene, and the birth dates, it could be that they registered to vote before, it was digitally captured, and when it was transcribed over, people just put a default birthday in. It could have been a whole bunch of stuff, but it definitely doesn't mean that the voters aren't real, that that the 4,000 people. And then when he was redirected on that question, he said, "Well, in Alabama, they have voter ID, so it's no problem whatsoever." Yeah.
That was shocking. Okay.
It
So
was. It was shocking.
By the way, did you get a chance to ask him to come on Why We Vote?
No, I did not. He and Eric Coomer are surrounded by the attorneys. There's 6 attorneys, I think. Between the two tables, there's about 6 attorneys that are on the Coomer side, but then I think there's also like a couple that are in the back room doing work and stuff. So there's just a ton, and they don't go anywhere without being in the middle. It's like they're walking with a group of bodyguards.
Wow.
So I did not get a chance to invite him to come on. He is a weird cat. He like, yeah, I can't even, you saw him, right? Because you went into curling, so you saw him in person, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a weirdo.
Yeah.
Okay, so his testimony started Wednesday night. So it was like an hour, maybe 90 minutes on Wednesday night. And then yesterday started with the plaintiffs in the morning. He was the first witness called, went through most of the day. I think it was like around 1 or 2 o'clock, we finally got to cross-examination. So at that point, he had spent all of this time saying, yes, there are vulnerabilities. No, they haven't been exploited. The elections industry and the national academies are doing the absolute best that they can, and everybody needs to just trust us, right? So then we get to cross-examination, and they had already played Kill Chain clips, like a mashup of clips from Kill Chain, in which Halderman is speaking, but they played this video from in response to his testimony. They played this video. I had never seen this video. It's a video of Halderman in, I think it's 2017, on a stage giving what appears to be some sort of TED style talk. And he says, every single device in use in the United States of America in elections is so vulnerable such that it can be accessed, injected, malware can be injected, and that malware can change the results of the elections. Every single one. And that's after, and so the way he cleans that up is, well, yeah, but if you go back and you listen to the whole talk, you'll see that at the end of the talk, you get my recommendation is paper ballots and risk limiting audits. And if we do risk limiting audits and make sure we're using paper ballots, then we're sufficiently guarding, because the risk limiting audit will identify if there's any fraud in the election. And that was the point. And then he says by 20, and then, Kill Chain came out in 2019. But by the 2020 election, he was sufficiently confident that the vulnerabilities that he had been speaking about since the 2016 election, that he was involved in litigation about, that he was giving open, talks about, that those things had been sufficiently guarded against. And of course, we don't have any evidence that any vulnerabilities were exploited, Brian.
All right. Well, we will have to unpack
One more
good.
factoid. Yeah. Okay. So the final thing was about adjudication. So central to the claims in this case are that Eric Coomer said, Joe Altman said that Eric Coomer said that Trump's not going to win. I made fucking sure of it. And then downstream from that is Eric Coomer has patents for the adjudication system, and that's where the steal is happening. So there was a lot of questions about adjudication, and this was kind of maddening as well, because adjudication is just going through and making sure that the bubble is filled in clearly. That, sometimes, and he put up an exhibit on the screen of like a check mark in a bubble on a ballot. It's like, well, the voter might be in a rush. They might just do a check, and that might kick out the machine. So a human needs to look at it. And if it's a clear voter intent, duplicate the ballot. Or in electronic adjudication, you don't have to duplicate the ballot. You can just do it on the screen. This was, particularly enraging after we did 7 shows with mad liberals about adjudication, and how in the 2020 election and the 2024 election, in the adjudication process, write-in ballots were changed. Mickey Mouse's vote went to Kamala Harris, right? That happened repeatedly in both of those contests. And adjudication is putting a human or a machine in the position to determine voter intent. Right? They have to say, well, if people color outside the lines, it's a problem. So we need to go in and check it. But we don't want them not to vote. So we have to do it. But what we've seen through our work on, our work amplifying and spotlighting the work of people like Phil, mad liberals, is that the adjudication process is where there's, human manipulation that can occur, and according to Phil's work, has occurred in Georgia in 2020 and 2024, extensively occurred. So that was, that was kind of wild. Before we move on off of this topic, I want to give my prediction, because I told everybody online that I was going to finally tell what I think is going to happen with this case. I still don't have the jury instructions. As of the last time I spoke to the people that would have them, they said they don't have them yet. So there's still, that's the caveat, is that the jury instructions are how it's going to be decided. That's, you have to look at this, this aspect of the law in this way. That's kind of how that works. But based on the trial as I saw it, the evidence as I saw it, I personally do not believe that any of these statements are actual defamation, but they've already been determined to be defamation per se. So you have to get to malice, according to Supreme Court. You have to get to malice on them. I don't think that they can get there with Mike Lindell. I don't think you can get to malice with Frank Speech. So there's 3 defendants, right? Mike Lindell, Frank Speech, and MyPillow, and the malice standard. I don't think that you can get there with Frank Speech, but you could potentially get to defamation and with just the negligence, the regular standard for Frank Speech. And that is because of half the defamatory statements aren't Mike Lindell's statements. They're statements that other people made on Frank Speech. And I think that I don't think the defense did enough to show that Frank Speech is a platform, not a publisher, and should have 230 protections and all of that kind of stuff, that, Mike shouldn't be held accountable for the things that other people say on their program. I don't know that they did enough with the jury to get them there. And again, it's going to come down to the jury instructions. So I think you could potentially get to negligence, defamation as a result of negligence for Frank Speech. MyPillow, I don't see how you get anything. Yeah, because MyPillow is, a product company, and they can't be held accountable for the things that people say while their promo codes are on the screen. Now, the one distinction is that My Pillow it's my My Pillow promo codes on Frank's speech while the defamation is on, and that's what they're going for. I still don't think you can get there with My Pillow, and I think that anybody that owns a business should be really concerned if that's the standard that we end up at.
Well, that's part of the Global Engagement Center's objective. You know, the GEC is to show that these corporations are supporting this type of stuff and they should be liable for the stuff that they're supporting. And that's absurd.
Yeah. Now there's, again, it comes down to the jury instructions. So based on how the decision is charged, how the deciding the case is charged to the jury and what they are told they have to consider and everything through, they could potentially find Mike Lindell liable. I really don't. I did not see anything that gets to malice. And so it's we'll see what happens. But I do think if there is liability found, it's going to be found in Frank's speech. Those are the true. So Mike Lindell's statements are like, "You're going to prison, Eric Coomer. You're an evil man. You're you tried really hard, Dominion, but you failed, and now you're going to be in prison behind bars made out of melted machines." Like those kinds of statements. I don't think that's defamation. I think that is Mike Lindell's
opinion,
spontaneous assertions based on what he believes to be true. And he fully believed it to be true. That's clear. It has to be clear to the jury that Mike Lindell believes the election was stolen and that believed the story of Joe Altman's story about Eric Coomer at the time that he platformed it and at the time that he made those assertions. So that should be case closed as it pertains to Mike Lindell, but I don't know what the jury instructions are going to be. So that's hard to say. But I think if there is liability to be found, it's going to be found in Frank's speech. Now, Frank's speech as an entity doesn't exist any longer. So we'll see what happens there. But I mean, I could be totally wrong on this, but that's how I see it.
I really wish I could have been a consultant for the attorneys for Mike's defense when they questioned Halderman. I don't know if there's anybody out there that knows his reporting better than me. Yeah. Did they play Misty Hampton? Her video of the adjudication process in Coffee County? No. They should have played that.
There's a lot of stuff that should have been brought in. And that's the thing that I think is so frustrating. And you see this on Twitter, right? There on X. This was billed as the trial of the century because it's the only one that hasn't settled with Dominion and Eric Coomer. And it's the opportunity to present evidence, the evidence of election fraud, and particularly the PCAP data. The evidence associated with the PCAP data. The thing that's frustrating is that the judge the judge allowed it. She's allowed the defense to, present the evidence of the reasonable basis for their beliefs and all of that. And the plaintiff attorneys were for it. They were like, yeah, if you have it, show it. And then we got some evidence of election fraud. There was the other thing one other thing that was played that I think was really powerful, played for the jury, was the voting village at DEF CON and the hacking of election machines in voting village at DEF CON. That was played for the jury. I mean, I told John yesterday, and I stand by my assertion, if I was a normie sitting on that jury, no, exposure to Mike Lindell other than like a pillow ad here or there, no understanding of how elections work and everything. After what was presented to the jury, if I was that normie juror, I would have real questions about the veracity of our elections after what was presented.
All right. I might have to figure out how I can sit in, because I'm going to be traveling this afternoon to go see my stepdad for Father's Day. So Ash is going to be running Why We Vote with Holly, right?
Yeah, Holly's going. We figured that she's going to interview me about the case, because I've done on Culture of Change, tried to kind of give a rundown, and I think it will be easier to have somebody else ask me questions about it. So we'll be doing that tonight on Why We Vote. Tune in for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then also, Brian, you should start planning now. Coomer versus Byrne is supposed to go to trial here in Colorado in August. I've reached out to Patrick Byrne to see if that's really going to happen. So or if it's moving, if it's going to be a different timeline, or if they're going to settle or what, I have no idea. But that'll that'll be, I think, even more of an explosive case than this one.
I agree.
So yeah,
agree
so
with that.
you should plan ahead. And I have to tell the audience, like, one of the only like regrets this week is that Brian wasn't there, because it would have been much easier. And Brian is right about the difficulty with capturing this kind of stuff. It's not easy.
Yes. So, all right. Well, we do have one more election story, Ash, for today. This is going to blow your mind. This is going to blow your mind. From the Economic Times, Kamala Harris voters erased in Rockland. New York lawsuit says, check the paper. What we know so far, this was published yesterday, or June 10th, excuse me. A New York Supreme Court judge. Now, remember, New York Supreme Court is not their highest court. Okay. It's all the district courts are called Supreme Courts. A New York Supreme Court judge has allowed a lawsuit challenging the accuracy of the 2024 election results in Rockland County to move forward. The case alleges that both the presidential and U.S. Senate vote counts show irregularities serious enough to warrant a full hand recount. Justice Rachel Tanguay ruled in May that the evidence raised in the suit was sufficient for the discovery process to begin 7 months after the election. This legal step will allow plaintiffs to subpoena records, question election officials under oath, and analyze original paper ballots. Keep in mind, Garland Favorito's case is still pending an appointment, an assignment to a lower judge in Fulton County, in Georgia, after the Georgia Supreme Court remanded it back down 2 years ago.
It's incredible that they think about how many attempts there were after 2020 to do exactly this. And it was,
let me get through the article because it gets worse when you're looking at it, as a side-by-side comparison. It gets way worse. The core of the lawsuit revolves around vote totals that on paper do not match what voters say happened at the polls. In some districts, hundreds of people reportedly voted for Democrat candidates like Senator Kristen Gillibrand, but not for Kamala Harris. That was the literal excuse they gave in Arizona, is that people didn't vote for Trump, but they voted for all the Republicans down ballot. That was their literal excuse. I think the number was like 65,000. Yeah. These people, this is disgusting, man. In several of the same districts, Harris received 0 votes. Well, maybe that's because nobody wanted to vote for a communist that was forced upon the people.
I can't believe you're so mad about this. Let's fucking go, man. Let's over. What?
I'm pissed, but I'm also supportive of this. I'm very supportive.
I'm super supportive, Kamala. You do you, girl. You go out there and you prove, because they'll listen to you because you're a Democrat and part of the regime. So you go out there, you prove that our elections are fake, and you'll be a hero.
Yep. Another key focus of the lawsuit is the drop-off rate, a term used to describe when voters cast a ballot for one race but leave others blank or vote across party lines. Are you effing kidding me? How many ballots did we see in 2020 that had nothing but the president voted and the Senate? The president, senator, and nothing else voted for, or Congress. A lot. Like hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
A drop-off rate of 1% to 2% is considered normal. In Rockland County, however, analysts found figures that were anything but. Harris received 9% fewer votes than Gillibrand, while Donald Trump received 23% more votes than the Republican Senate candidate. Does anybody remember when the treasurer in Maricopa County got more votes than Carrie Lake?
Yeah.
Like the bottom ticket, like the lowest rung on the Republican poll of partisan officials got more votes than Abe Hamadeh and Carrie Lake.
Yeah. That's not real.
It's not.
That was so. This is something that came up with Halderman, and it was kind of, I think it was in response to Dr. Frank. Like, what do you think of Dr. Frank's analysis? And he was, but as he was talking, I was thinking more of like a Draza Smith's analysis, or like Dr. Shiva and what he was kind of talking about. But he said, you cannot rely on statistical analysis when it comes to voting. If you see, patterns and deviations in the statistical in the data, you can't apply statistical analysis to that because voting is messy and random and human, a very human-centered process. And so the statistical analysis looking at election result data is not going to be helpful or useful because of that. I thought that was fascinating coming from a scientist. But then he also says the way that we can ensure accuracy of the results is to use the risk limiting audit because the risk limiting audit provides a high level of statistical confidence.
Reading on, Harris while Donald Trump receives 23% more votes than the Republican Senate candidate. Maybe you just had a really shitty candidate. According to Max Bonamente, a professor of physics and astronomy at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, because I guess physics and astronomy is very relevant to election machines. Maybe he's going to be the next Eric Coomer, a nuclear physicist who was cold called to be
Out
an
of the
elections
blue.
programmer. And I mean, look, I'm just going to throw this out there. If I was a nuclear physicist or a nuclear engineer, I'm not sure which one exactly it was, but if you gave me the option of diving into the world of nuclear physics and election machine programming, I'm definitely going nuclear physics.
It's Dr. Coomer, Brian.
I'm never going to call him Dr. Coomer. Never will you hear. I don't even write Dr. Coomer. Sorry, you're not earning that.
It was corrected so many times. Like, oh, sorry,
shit.
Dr. Coomer.
The doctor thing, like, it is what it is. Medical doctors, I don't even think they deserve that title anymore at this point. Anyways, according to Max Bonamente, the physics professor, quote, these data would require extreme sociological or political causes for their explanation and would benefit from further assurances as to their fidelity. Again, we're making emotional responses to these situations here. Kamala Harris was a horrible candidate. Candidate. She was the first one to drop out of the
primary.
She was the first one to drop out of the 2020 primary because she was so unpopular.
Nobody liked her.
Then she was thrust upon the Democratic Party in 2020, the Democrat Party in 2020. Then in 2024, they just said, you know what? We're just going to default. We're going to give it to her. Which, by the way, I don't know if you heard the breakdown. David Hogg is out at DNC, and they're going to have they're going to redo the election. So now it's at the point where Democrats, when they don't like the results, they'll just be like, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to cancel it out and redo it altogether. So 2016, they rig it against Bernie. They say it's rigged against Hillary. Then in 2020, they rig it against Bernie again and say it's and Donald, and then they actually rig it against Donald Trump. They don't allow any of these types of cases to come forward. And then in 2024, they're just like, screw all of you. We're just going to tell you who you can vote for. That
is an important point, is that Democrats have not had a real primary since Obama, but even that's questionable in my opinion.
We just didn't know enough back then to dive into it. What makes and this is the part that pisses me off. What makes Rockland stand out is the level of documentation and voter testimony.
Yeah.
Beyond the affidavits, many Democrats in the area have reported being turned away from polling places, being told that they had already voted, or checking ballot tracking systems only to find their vote was marked as not cast.
Yeah.
I can't even count how many people have affidavits testifying under oath to exactly this.
Yep.
Exactly this.
And now, it stands out because it was Democrats.
But exactly. Now it's Democrats. A court hearing has been scheduled for the 22nd of September. Plaintiffs are expected to request a manual recount of every presidential and Senate ballot cast in the Rockland County. While the lawsuit cannot overturn certified results, it may expose deeper vulnerabilities in local election systems.
Let's go. Let's do it. It's going to take Democrats getting it over the finish line because we're all election deniers and just don't understand science. One more thing on the Haldeman thing, that this is my favorite part of his testimony. He was talking and he used the example of Hawaii. He said, if Hawaii flipped red, everybody would know that there was a problem. His assertion is that you would know if there's fraud because the results would be so preposterous that people wouldn't accept them.
Mm.
And that's how we know that there was no fraud in 2020.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So Rockland County is a Republican county in New York. It's a Republican stronghold. I think this is very interesting that all of this is coming out the way it is, because Ash, you and I, we covered all these cases. Well, not all of them, but a lot of these cases in 2020 moving on. And one of the things, none of these ever went to evidentiary hearings. None of them, maybe a couple. And Trump won a majority of those, by the way. The ones that actually went the whole process, Trump won. One of the things you always hear is, well, you can't overturn the election. And this is lawsuits broadly, not just election related ones. There's no injury. There's no remedy for the injury. Like you can't fix this even if we do it. And we've had the discussion before where it's like, you can't remedy the injury, so you're just going to ignore the case and allow it to happen again. And the next time we have to hope that the judicial system goes through the way that it's supposed to go through. Yeah. This looks like a clear case where they're giving it the opportunity to run its course, even though there's nothing that can be done. At the end of this trial, the judge is not going to be able to provide relief in any way that is going to be, substantive. Now,
do you don't think the judge would be able to hit on the statutes, do something to show that the statutes that are governing the way this process works, there's got to be some sort of relief that could move the needle for election integrity, not for the plaintiff, right? You wouldn't be able to put them in the seat. Although there was that Arizona, I think it was governor race that was back in like the early 1900s or whatever, where it took like a year. I think it was like a year that the wrong person was in the seat and the election fraud was exposed and it was overturned and that person was removed from their seat and the new governor was sat. So there is precedent for it.
Yeah, I don't know. The problem that I have is it seems like all of the barriers that we had to get through to bring litigation are being completely ignored now. Latches.
Yeah, but be fair, right? Carrie Lake was able to bring her cases. Her trial was a shit show, but she was able. We did see some election cases get brought. They weren't effectively decided, and I think a lot of them were. The majority, Rachel Alexander has done a really good job of documenting all of the cases around 2020, and most of them were standing or lack of jurisdiction type. The reasons that they were kicked out, but there was a few that went. I'm here for this, man. President Trump knows that elections are fake. President Trump knows that elections are fake. He wants to fix elections. He wants to make them real so that we can trust the outcome. That's very verifiably accurate representation of the will of the voters. And that is going to take the cooperation and collaboration of Democrats to get it done.
I agree.
Democrats becoming election deniers in 2025, I think, is a fantastic development.
Yeah, I agree. And this is all because of the misinformation that's being spread by Rosie O'Donnell, Kathy Griffin, Jim Acosta, and Don Lemon.
Yes. So it's a threat to our democracy.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, if this is the way it goes, and this is what it takes to get it across, then so be it.
The hypocrisy is offensive. I get you. I'm with you.
That's my biggest takeaway. I'm all for this going through. It's incredibly hypocritical. Okay, moving on. So the big news out of the day from yesterday, the IDF has launched a preemptive, precise, combined offensive to strike Iran's nuclear program. From the IDF themselves, dozens of IAF jets, Israeli Air Force jets, completed the first stage that included strikes on dozens of military targets, including nuclear targets in different areas of Iran. Today, Iran is closer than ever to obtaining a nuclear weapon. Did anybody ask Israel, do you guys have nukes? Somebody should ask them. Like, do you guys have nukes? No? Yes? Maybe? Today, Iran is closer than ever to obtaining a nuclear weapon. Weapons of mass destruction in the hands of the Iranian regime are an existential threat to the state of Israel and to the wider world. Yes, only we can have that specific type of weapon. The state of Israel has no choice but to fulfill the obligation to act in defense of its citizens and will continue to do so everywhere it is required to do so, and as we have done in the past. Then we'll jump over here. This is from the Times of Israel military correspondent Emmanuel Fabian. The IDF confirms it launched the aerial campaign. Dozens of targets, related nuclear programs, and other military facilities are being struck. The operation is dubbed Strength of a Lion.
I thought it was called Rising Lion.
I don't know, something.
Yeah,
wild.
I heard. I think it was. I heard that saw it rather on X from a Israel government source. I believe it's called Rising Lion.
You remember my trust the science bumper stickers? The science, PSYENSE. It should be
Yep.
strength of a LYING. Not
Yeah.
lying like the beast, but lying like Netanyahu lies. The IDF says Iran has enough enriched uranium to build several bombs within days, and it needs to act against its imminent threat. I've been hearing that for 5 fucking years. Iran's got days until they can build a nuclear weapon.
Longer. It's just the whole. Go back to the Obama, right? The Obama administration and the Iran nuclear deal and all of that. The opposition to that was exactly the rhetoric that we're hearing right now.
Yep.
These are stories they're very committed to.
Yes. So let's jump over to this Axios story, and we'll get into some more of the direct correspondence from some of our elected leaders and some of the people that President Trump has appointed.
How
From
real
Axios.
are you fully bought in that this is real? Where are we at on the reality collapse spectrum with this?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. I am not.
And I think it's for a reason, though. But we'll get into all that. Israel strikes Iran nuclear sites, kills military chief and scientists. The strikes were targeting military leaders, nuclear scientists conducting covert sabotage operations on missiles and air defense sites. Israel is directly attacking its biggest and best armed adversary without explicit backing from the U.S. Iran has already launched more than 100 drones towards Israel in response. President Trump publicly opposed an Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear sites on Thursday, saying he still believed a nuclear deal was possible. Hours later, Israel began targeting the nuclear sites, as well as Iranian military's top brass and senior scientists working on the nuclear program. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commander, General Hossein Salami, was among those killed, along with the military chief of staff, General Mohammad Bagheri, and at least one more high-ranking general, according to Iranian state media. Also confirmed is the deaths of 2 top nuclear scientists and another senior general. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, I can never say his name, Khamenei, promised a harsh punishment for the attack. Defense Minister Israel Katz told Israelis to expect drone and missile attacks from Iran, quote, in the immediate future. All schools and most workplaces are closed on Friday. ISF officials told reporters the operation will take several days, and Netanyahu said the campaign would go, quote, as long as it takes. Netanyahu said planning has been underway for months to simultaneously strike Iran's nuclear and missile programs. He claimed Iran had taken unprecedented steps in its nuclear programs and was rapidly producing a massive stockpile of ballistic missiles, both of which Israel was seeking to eliminate. A 6th round of U.S.-Iran talks had been scheduled for Sunday, but Israel has likely now wiped out any prospect of a deal. Trump has a National Security Council meeting, which is probably going on right about now, scheduled for this morning. So surface level, I was at the hockey game when I saw this. I got a text message and immediately sanction Israel. This is not, we're 48 hours away.
Your timeline last night was very ragey about this.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is why I asked
I'm
how bought in you were to this story being real, because your Twitter suggests that you certainly are. I was not plugged into the news cycle at all. So I get home from the courthouse yesterday and jump on Twitter, and everybody's cheering for war. There's 2 main stories: this Israel-Iran thing and the senator that got arrested. So hopefully we're going to talk about that too later in the show. Do you have that story?
Which one?
The Senator Padilla that got arrested yesterday. Yeah. Okay. So those 2 stories were everybody's raging about, but it's all centering on these videos, right? We're watching real wartime coverage of all of the bombs dropping and all of the damage and things happening. And it feels heavily produced to me. And it feels that it is evoking the desired response. Now I just want to, Burning Bright's usually a dick to me, but I'm gonna quote him because I think he makes an excellent point in this morning's news brief about this story. Not long ago, this is Burning Bright now. Not long ago, Trump told you that if the bombs start dropping in the Middle East, it would be fake. Okay, he didn't say exactly that, but it wasn't too far off. Now he's quoting Trump, quote, "We can blow up whatever we want, but nobody's getting killed. We can blow up a lab, but nobody's going to be in the lab." I don't like. We just talked about how we've been told this story about Iran and nuclear for pretty much our entire lives, certainly in earnest for the since the Obama administration. And it's, now the story is coming to fruition with fantastical visuals and, all of the real-time reporting. We're getting live footage from the war. I'm very skeptical.
Yeah. So here's the thing, that the one thing that makes me very skeptical is the footage that we're getting, because it's garbage. The footage is absolute garbage. Okay. And that's been the case this whole time. It's pixelated garbage. It's a 10-second clip, a 6-second clip, that kind of shit. But the thing that makes me think it's real is you have two people that have been provocateurs in that region for a long time, and that's Zelensky and Netanyahu. Both of them, I think, are puppets. Now, who's controlling them? Who's controlling those? Who's the maestro behind it? I don't know. But we were 48 hours away from President Trump, Steve Witkoff sitting down with the Iranians and continuing this peace deal. There is no doubt in my mind that Bibi would do everything he could to sabotage that peace deal from going through, because any type of normalized relations with Iran is detrimental to him. And that's just the way it is. So,
but that's just the way it is, because that's the story as we've been told it. There's a whole faction of Badlands that believe he's our boy Yoo-hoo, right? No. So it's not just a fact that Netanyahu is attempting to sabotage Trump. I think there's a lot of things around Netanyahu that are weird.
Hey, I did not say
you did say fact.
I said it's my opinion.
No, you didn't. You said fact. That was what I reacted to. Chat, fact check us.
What did I say fact to?
To Netanyahu is attempting to sabotage because it's an existential threat to him. That's just a fact.
It is an existential. That is a fact. Normalized relations with Iran is an existential threat. Whether or not Bibi attacked them to disrupt that is not a fact.
Oh yeah, no, but I don't. So this is the thing that I don't think it's a fact on paper. In the story, sure, Benjamin Netanyahu has been in power forever, and he is going to keep it going and prevent any peace from happening in the Middle East because he benefits from the forever war and from being the perpetual victim. That's the story. But I believe when we go back to the Abraham Accords and the work with the Saudis and the groundwork that's being laid in the region, Netanyahu still being an independent actor that has his power intact and is going to be able to sabotage what the major players in the region and the US leadership are attempting to do. I have a hard time believing that. I have a hard time believing that we've got this free radical out there that we're just going to keep running around and flying around causing harm.
How do you stop him when he's got our entire government is captured by him and his lobby?
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to stop. So anyways, my take on it is that this is an attempt to sabotage the peace talks to normalize relations. Here's President Trump essentially saying just that.
I want to have an agreement with Iran. We're fairly close to an agreement. We are fairly close to a pretty good agreement. It's got to be better than pretty good, though, but it's got to be, I'd much prefer an agreement. As long as I think there is an agreement, I don't want them going in because I think that would blow it. Might help it, actually, but it also could blow it. But we've had very good discussions with Iran. Whether or not we get there, I can't tell you, but it'll happen soon. I say this, Peter, very strongly. They can't have, whether it's going in or not going in, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I'd prefer the more friendly path.
All right. So, President Trump has publicly said, I do not endorse an attack on Iran. He did have this truth out this morning. Let me pull it up here. He said 2 months ago, I gave Iran a 60-day ultimatum to make a deal. They should have done it. Today is day 61. I told them what to do, but they just couldn't get there. Now they have perhaps a second chance. So Is there a little bit of smoke and mirrors going on here where, now that President Trump maybe he used Netanyahu as a pass through, and it's kind of what would you call it? What would you call it if he's doing this kind of under the radar, attacks them to kind of show, hey, we will use force if we have to. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me, the way that we've come out.
You could call it a movie. Somebody else asked,
Yeah.
so are the dead military leaders fake too? I never believe those stories. Every time that a bomb is dropped in the region, we kill a major ISIS leader, right? And we're told that over and over again. I think those stories are very suspect. It's propaganda intended to generate public support for the campaign they're about to launch, and I'm not giving them that. I don't. We're now in the age of really advanced AI capabilities. We are in the midst. Brian, you and I talked about this probably a year and a half ago at this point. Reality collapse, right? From Scary Smart and the AI dilemma and all of those things. You're not going to be able to tell what's real. Well, my personal orientation, and there's folks at Badlands that I'm aligned with, and this is that we have to assume that it's fake until there's evidence that it's real. That's what it means to navigate reality collapse.
And unfortunately, with AI's capabilities, it's incredibly difficult to discern from what's real and what's fake. But
that's why I wanted to go down, to see, did that protest really happen, right? What is the evidence that crowd of people was actually in that street? And, I want to go in and see with my own eyes what's actually happening. And even that can be fake, right? Because of this trial, the super skeptical part of me thinks that this Lindell trial is kayfabe to build a record, right? So it's we have to be very, very critical, because the people that tell us stories lie to us all the time.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and get into this tweet here from the White House. Statement from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Tonight, Israel took unilateral action against Iran. We are not involved in strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. Israel advised us that they believe this action was necessary for its self-defense. President Trump and the administration have taken all necessary steps to protect our forces and remain in close contact with our regional partners. Let me be clear, Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel. President Trump said this on Truth Social last night, or actually very early this morning. I gave Iran chance after chance to make a deal. I told them in the strongest of words to just do it, in quotes. I wonder if that's a Nike reference. But no matter how hard they tried, no matter how close they got, they just couldn't get it done. I told them it would be much worse than anything they know, anticipated, or were told, that the United States makes the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world by far, and that Israel has a lot of it with much more to come, and they know how to use it. Certain Iranian hardliners spoke bravely, but they didn't know what was about to happen. They are all dead now, and it will only get worse. There's already been great death and destruction, but there's still time to make this slaughter, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal, come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left, and save what was once known as the Iranian Empire. No more death, no more destruction. Just do it before it's too late. God bless you all.
Is Nike using Iranian sweatshops now? I would have thought he'd use that on China.
That'd be pretty interesting if they were. I mean, there's a clear move to distance ourselves from these attacks from the White House. We're not seeing that same distancing from our Congress. This is this was posted on my timeline from the Tribe on X. You've got Rick Scott, Bernie Moreno, Lindsey Graham. Game on. Pray for Israel. Yeah. Screw off, man. Fuck off.
Yeah, they arrested the wrong senator.
Yeah, fuck off. Game on.
Lindsey Graham should be rolled up.
You know how many people in elected, quote unquote, elected positions I saw yesterday? They're like, Israel must defend itself. Pray for Israel. Okay, pray for everybody involved in this war. I don't care if you're Israeli, Iranian. I don't care. Especially civilians. Military leaders, pray for them to have some discretion and some intestinal fortitude to be able to do the right thing in this. But for Lindsey Graham to post game on, this isn't a fucking game, Lindsey.
It is to him.
I don't know if you've ever been to war. He hasn't. I don't know if he knows anybody in his family that's been to war. Likely hasn't. It's not a game. It's not a game. Innocent people die. People that are propagandized by their own government, not saying us necessarily, but Israeli as well, Israel, Iran, all of them, propagandized by their government to make it believe that those people over there want me dead and want to kill me. And they send us over there to do exactly that. It's not a freaking game, man.
Great.
Pisses me off. That was probably, Ash, you said my timeline was raging last night. That was the tweet raged me right there.
Yeah.
Game.
Well, and that's the thing, like looking at this, I refuse to have emotional reactions to news headlines anymore because that's what they want. That is the intention, right? But I definitely felt the emotion because what this is, we have to go do forever war against Iran now. We might need a draft and my sons are going to get called up to go fight in your bullshit. And yeah, I have the emotional reaction too. I'm just not sure it's real. The story that I'm having an emotional reaction to.
Yeah. James Lankford, Tim Scott, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Susan Collins, Steve Daines, John Boozman, Joni Ernst, Roger Marshall, Jim Risch, Deb Fisher, Kevin Kramer, Tom Cotton, shocker, Marsha Blackburn, Roger Wicker, John Husted, Todd Young, Joni Ernst, Jim Banks, Katie Boyd Britt, Tim Sheehy, Randy Fine, Kevin Calvert, Tom Cole, Daryl Issa, Mike Simpson, Ted Cruz, and Bill Huizenga. All these people out there just, Israel has the right to defend themselves. Israel was not attacked, folks. Period. Israel was not attacked. We were 2 days away, 48 hours away from the United States Special Envoy going over there and sitting down and continuing diplomatic negotiations. This was a disruption event, in my opinion.
Always. Of course, we're going to try and stop the peace from happening because peace is, a danger to the military industrial complex and the massive money laundering operation. That, by the way, is, in my opinion, based on what we have seen in the public sphere. Sorry, I've been in a defamation trial all week, so I'm hedging what I'm saying. But is largely the Senate is complicit. Senators are beneficiaries of the money laundering of the massive grift that's going on. I would argue more so than House reps. House reps serve 2-year terms. Senators are there for 6 years. And when you see them jumping up and down and cheering for a war, I believe that it means they're getting a big old kickback. I wrote in the news brief this morning, they failed at arresting the Senate. They only got one, damn it. Like yeah. Sorry.
If we were to believe that the Elon Trump feud was kayfabe and was, designed to show who's going to roll one way versus the other, this very much could be similar, and this could be a secondary benefit of this. I don't even want to use the word benefit. A secondary result, consequence of this action is all these people that came out with, yeah, Israel, go to war with Iran. Yeah, we're rooting for you, praying for you. Do your thing. There were no flying go-karts this time. There were no drone strikes. There was nothing. There's this decades-long threat.
They probably cited intelligence, though, right? Like, because they said it was preemptive. So, like, we super duper know that we're about to be attacked, so we're attacking.
Intelligence.
Yeah, no, of course, I meant that with scare quotes. In terms of you mentioned, what was the example that the Trump Musk kayfabe?
Mm-hmm.
What was what do we believe, or what do we theorize was the intended, if it's kayfabe and they did it on purpose, what was the point?
Well, I mean, there's a lot
of Elon Trump specifically, of that feud that happened, that all those tweets were deleted. What is the most likely point of that if it's kayfabe?
There's a lot of points. One could be independent thought. Elon Musk was showing that you can have ideas independent from, you don't have to follow along with whatever President Trump says at all times. I'm not a fan of the big, beautiful bill. I've publicly said every single time we talk about it that I'm not a fan of this bill. I want to go back to single line appropriations. That's what we were promised, and we haven't gotten that yet. It could also be an exposure to show who was just riding the coattails of MAGA in hopes that, in 2026, 2028, they're able to, shine that MAGA light on them and say, hey, look, I've been by President Trump's side the whole time. And when you see the fracture with, two of the most popular people on earth. There's no question about that. The only two people that have brand recognition every single place they go is Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And if somebody is pretending to be on the MAGA train and then sees an opportunity to break from that and go in the tech bro direction, then I think that's absolutely an opportunity for them to do that and jump on Elon Musk without, they don't come out flatly and say Donald Trump's an asshole or anything like that, but they come out and they say, yeah, I'm with Elon Musk on this one. Donald Trump's going a little crazy.
So I think that I see it a little bit differently. I think that the big outcome of that was helpful to what we're trying to do is that Democrats started shouting for the release of the Epstein
That's another
information. Just like Democrats are now shouting for election integrity to be solved. So that when we look at what's the point of the kayfabe type of things, I do think there's an element of unity to get us to the change, building public support and gaining buy-in and alignment for the change. The change is we're going to make a golden age. We're going to root out this corruption. We're going to arrest the Senate. Damn it.
You're sounding like Palpatine.
Yeah, well, I don't know, man. I really do think like I've never been more on the devolution train than I am after I learned so much this week that I didn't know. But yeah, I think that the purpose I don't believe that Trump and Elon are feuding, right? I think that was kayfabe. I think it was very obvious kayfabe. I thought it was hilarious. But the net effect of it was that Democrats and neocon Republicans, you're 100% right about people exposing themselves. We see that happening over and over again. There's like these, deep operatives that have kind of maintained their fake MAGA credentials for a period of time. But every time we have one of these stories, they reveal themselves. A few more of them reveal themselves, right? They stick their heads up. And I think that's kind of a big part of this season. They have to have public mandate for the change. It's the reason why we're able to do what we're able to do with immigration, because the mandate for that is there. People voted for this. People are not pissed. Legal immigrants are on board with, deporting illegal immigrants. We have the public mandate for that. We need the public mandate for some of these other things. And I think a lot of the kayfabe is useful for that.
Yeah. And again, we could have a whole show just talking about all the secondary and tertiary consequences of these feuds. And, the Epstein file was a great one that you brought up. He deleted that, but you're right. The Harry Sissons and the DNC and everybody else came out calling for the Epstein files. When Trump won 2024, the first thing I said was Trump is an illegitimate or not an illegitimate president. Trump actually probably lost the election. We should be doing an audit. I was resharing people, Democrats that were saying that and saying, yes, absolutely. Trump stole this election. Let's do it. People that don't know who that don't follow me and don't know, what we do in terms of our specialty, so to speak, were blasting me, saying, oh, you're an election denier and all that. Yeah, I've always been an election denier.
Proud because elections are fake. Elections are fake.
Denier. But it
fake.
got over.
And we've even had this fight with other Badlanders, right? Well, fake. You can't say they're fake. I mean, there is an election. No, there isn't actually. There is
there's an election as far as
there is a movie that's put on for us about democracy and that we are actually like super important in selecting who represents us. But all you get to do is cast a ballot. You have no rights to its count. You have no rights to ensure that it's verifiably, to verify its accuracy. You have no rights in that ecosystem. Judge Amy Totenberg confirmed that in her ruling in Curling. And so it's fake. Elections are fake. It is an interactive theater. It's like dinner theater that you're participating in.
Yep. That's what they're real in as much as you go there, you fill out a ballot and you put it into a black box. And then after that, everything after that is fake. Utterly.
That's like saying that Space Mountain is real because I saw it.
Space Mountain is real. I've been.
We went to space and we launched into space and there were aliens and shit. I haven't done Space Mountain in like 15 years. So I don't know.
Space Mountain's absolutely real.
The ride is real.
Yes.
That's how real our elections are. You're not going to space. You're on a ride.
You're on a ride. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's jump into this story here from Russia today. Russia strongly condemns Israel's attack on Iran. Russia warned that the operation risks triggering a dangerous escalation across the Middle East. The Russian Foreign Ministry said the attack violated both the UN Charter and international law. Quote, "We strongly condemn the violent actions of the state of Israel," said the Russian Foreign Ministry in a statement. "Unprovoked military strikes against a sovereign UN member state, its citizens, sleeping peaceful cities, and nuclear energy infrastructure facilities are categorically unacceptable. The hard-won multilateral efforts to reduce confrontation and find solutions that eliminate any suspicions and prejudices regarding Iran's peaceful nuclear energy have been undermined and set back. There have been repeated warnings about the danger of military actions that threaten stability and security in the region. Responsibility for all the consequences of this provocation will fall on the Israeli leadership. Moscow is closely monitoring the actions of the IAEI, that's the Atomic Energy Org that we talked about yesterday at the UN, regarding the situation, noting that the agency's staff, quote, have found themselves under Israeli fire, end quote, along with Iranian citizens. Russia expects the agency to provide an assessment of the situation and analyze the potential radiological consequences of the Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. The ministry reiterated that Moscow sees no military solution to the Iranian nuclear issue, insisting that it, quote, can only be achieved through peaceful, political, and diplomatic means. Iran's Atomic Energy Organization has accused the IAEA of colluding with Israel following the attacks on the country's nuclear infrastructure. It slammed the IAEA's failure to condemn Israel as, quote, a sign of the agency's lost credibility, as cited by ISNA news agency. That's Iran's state media. So I think it's a very interesting thing that, Putin and the Russian, demons over there, that's how they want us to think Russians are, is that they're all demonic entities that just want to destroy the United States, are actually trying to go along the same diplomatic lines that President Trump is pushing for and has been pushing for, that even Marco Rubio, who I thought was a massive, Israel hawk, is coming out and saying, hey, we had nothing to do with this. Leave us out of this. This is not a good look for Israel. And, I hope Fox News had Brett Baer on yesterday, and Brett Baer cuts in and says, yeah, I just talked to President Trump, and President Trump says that we have Israel's back. President Trump has said no such thing in terms of this attack publicly. If Brett Baer actually had that conversation with President Trump, then that is a little bit concerning, because Baer said that if Iran retaliates against Israel, the U.S. will intervene. And if that's the case, I'm summarizing that, paraphrasing, but if that's the case, then that's I'm not okay with that. If Israel is going to bomb somebody unprovoked, you're on your own. Okay, do what you got to do, but you're on your own. Don't come crying to us. Don't come over here. It's like I always compare Israel to like the little kid in school that has a huge big brother. Like he's like a freshman and his brother's a senior and he's a linebacker on the football team, and this kid's barely in the chess club. Don't go picking fights and then go to your linebacker brother and be like, hey, take care of this for me. Yeah. That's I don't know. Go ahead.
I'm opposed to the United States of America getting involved in any more conflict in any region of the world, but certainly that fucking region of the world. I won't cheer for it. That was one of the things that was jarring for me last night, kind of re-engaging in the news cycles, was how many people are cheering for war. How many people are like, I think it was Insurrection Barbie was like, the Israel haters are having a real bad day. And it's like, it's not the US versus Canada in a hockey game that we're watching, right? Yes. We're talking about stories that we're being told that will lead to us having another 20-year presence in the region. We're at the point that we're so close to getting out. I'm a major isolationist when it comes to war and conflict. I think that we should have, good trade policy and shore up against this kind of stuff through, removing corruption. We're in this position because of corruption, and not just U.S. corruption, right? NATO corruption, UN corruption, World Economic Forum corruption. That's what gets us. That's to me the mission and the goal is to root out and eliminate that. I think if you root out and eliminate the the Prussian shadow controls, and you actually neutralize that, I think we get to the point where we don't have World War III, and I think that would be a good thing.
Amen. And everything was going so good in that region. Historic talks in Riyadh with President Trump and MBS and Qatar, and lifting sanctions on Syria and trying to normalize that region. And again, the whole idea of Iran is on its way to a nuclear weapon. Well, that's what we say. When I say we, I'm talking about our intelligence community. I'm talking about Mossad, CIA, the UN investigators. The other side of the spectrum is saying, no, that's not the case. They're making this for nuclear energy, which is a game changer, in terms of welcome to the modern world. Nuclear energy is an absolute game changer. I can't remember who it was, whether it was General Quast or maybe it was, I had a long conversation one time, a one-on-one with Colonel McGregor, and it might've been Colonel McGregor actually that was saying that Iran is not a military threat to the United States. Iran is a cyber threat because their capabilities in that spectrum, in that field, are well advanced compared to their military capabilities, and on par with a lot of what we would consider the superpowers of the world. And so if they're able to get to nuclear energy and have nuclear reactors to provide their energy, that exponentially grows the potential of artificial intelligence and other cyber capabilities, because you have the energy to be able to run those things. People don't realize AI takes an incredible amount of energy, like people that are using AI for search engines now, you guys are like drains on the grid. And so I'm wondering, if this is just, they want when I say they, I'm talking about Netanyahu and his consortium. They want that region to remain destabilized. They don't want stability in that region. And it's been moving in that direction. President Trump has made historic, moves in bringing stability. And this just set it all back to, potentially set it back to square one. Let's see how President Trump responds to this, because he is the master negotiator in all these things. He is the deal, the art of the deal. And I have a tremendous faith that he'll right this ship.
Yeah, I have 3 quick responses to that. One is, we don't need to worry about Iran being a cyber threat because we have CISA. And so, everything's
going to save the day.
Yeah.
Oh, he's out now.
There's no evidence that Iran is a cyber threat. So we don't really need to worry about it. The second thing that I have to say about that is, please hit the thumb. Everyone, helps us out quite a bit. We need that. So please smash the like button wherever you're watching us. And the third thing is, should we hit our next sponsor?
Wow. I thought you were actually going to give me like some feedback or something.
You want me to give you substantive answers? Well, CISA.
No.
Safest and most secure.
Well, folks, unleash your passion with Badlands Media merchandise. Dive into warm weather with Badlands themed games and sporting goods, from ping pong balls to golf balls, hockey pucks to frisbees, and even a Badlands pickleball set. Sip your favorite brew, whether it's coffee, hops, or whatever quenches your thirst, all while making a statement. Think rugged tumblers, sleek coffee mugs, beer steins, whiskey glasses, and more. Car accessories, from vanity plates to magnets, and tech gear. Let you rep Badlands everywhere you go. And it's not just shirts and hats. Our store is bursting with bold, high-quality gear to fuel your summer vibe. Check out these Badlanders rocking their gear. Join the crew. Head to badlandsmedia.tv/merch. Grab your official Badlands merch and spread the word loud and proud. And be sure to tag Badlands if you post your selfies on social media, so we can say hi and maybe highlight those pictures. Let's see how far we can reach together. Again, that's badlandsmedia.tv/merch. All right. I was actually, I was with Christy last week at the golf course that we play at, or that I play at. And we were hitting balls and continuing to teach her. And the guy that was hitting next to us goes, "Are you Brian?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "CanCon?" And I go, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh man, I watch your shows all the time," and I was like, "That was
Do
pretty
you
cool."
have some sort of sound playing on your end? Because people are saying there's background noise. They first said it was my mic, but I have no sound happening over here. I don't hear any sound. Is there some tab in your browser or something that's playing?
No, nothing.
Oh, everybody says they're.
Hold on. Let's hold on. Let's see.
Oh, EC says it must be Rumble. I'm listening on Pilled and there's no background noise. Yeah, I can't hear any background noise. I wonder if it's attached to that video in some way.
Let me see real quick. Hold on.
They say it's not happening anymore. It was going on for 5 minutes. What did it sound like?
Let's see if it happens when I play this ad again.
Okay. You have to pull it in, yeah.
Are you guys getting it while this ad is playing?
Yeah, let's see. Now it stop. Coming, going, sporadic. It's people talking? There's people talking in the background of our show. I'm gonna go listen. Like when we're
listen.
Yeah, when we're done, I'm gonna go listen because no, it's stopped now. Okay, weird.
All right, guys, we got one more ad and then we'll get to some LA news. Dude, there's so much happening right now. Guys, have you tried 1775 coffee yet? Now is your shot. Get the 1775 starter kit that just dropped. There's only 1,000 of them being sold. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check, the smooth medium roast, and the vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin free, and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a golden spoon clip because freedom is not scooped with a plastic spoon, a frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler that says, "I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch." $170 worth of coffee and gear, all yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Start your day with coffee that actually backs what you believe. All right, 1775 coffee pinned up there at the top. Check it out. That's really weird about the
Jessica said, Jessica's in Rumble Studio, right? She said, "Sorry, it was me. I didn't realize my mic was on." But I don't have any Rumble Studio, so I wouldn't hear that at all. But okay, all right, got it. Okay, perfect. That's what it was. So it was just okay. That was weird. I was like, are we being tracked? Damn it, again.
Oh, Jessica's she's trying to get me fired. That's what she's trying to do.
Well,
I'm just kidding, Jessica. We love you. We love you. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Just kidding. I would quit and protest if you were fired.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's bullshit, but thank you. All right, let's get into the next story here. Whoop. There we go. From Homeland Security. First, let's play the Senator Padilla debacle that went down. So Senator Padilla from California tried to crash a press conference that Kristi Noem, I think was Kristi Noem herself actually there.
Oh.
I think she was there. But anyways, check this out.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
How many of our ICE agents have been doxxed for doing their duty, how they have been targeted.
All right. So first and foremost, if you're a senator and you're coming in, he has no credentials. He's not wearing a suit. He's wearing a jacket and a collared, a polo shirt.
Just an everyman.
And he's coming into a new, like, you know, the MacGyver story, the Representative MacGyver going to the detention facility. He is right in a sense that by herself, exclusively by herself, not with staffers or any other people, she does have the right to go into that facility for oversight. I'll keep in mind that congressmen were denied access to the facilities where J6ers were held in 2021 and beyond, but she does actually have that right. He does not have any right to this He, as a senator, he has no right to crash a press conference and insert himself into that press conference. And so then as he's being removed from here, he's resisting removal. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some charges brought up on this.
Yeah, well, again, I think this was a complete failure at arresting the Senate. They only got one. I don't. It's stunts. It's
Yes,
just
it
stunts.
is.
They're
It
all
is.
just doing publicity stunts, and it's a waste of time and resources and money. But if you are going to interfere and attempt to make your stunts have stunts are not without consequence, and no one is above the law. So and that's the thing, is that this Padilla guy is at a minimum resisting arrest. Right. When it comes down to it, he starts engaging in physical back and forth with the police and resisting arrest. Well, no one resisting arrest is a crime, and no one is above the law. I also would just like to reiterate that it would have been way better if Lindsey Graham was arrested.
I agree with that. So Padilla, look, it's just like you said, a publicity stunt. These people are just trying to incite rage. They're trying to pit the divisiveness, wedge it even deeper than it already is right here, and have, people like us saying, oh, he shouldn't have done that. And people on the left saying he's a U.S. senator. He has every right to be there. It's just, that's all it is. It's all bullshit. It's all kayfabe. It's all stupidity. It's all these people just trying to get a little bit of fame, so maybe next Padilla can be the governor to replace Newsom, or, maybe one day he'll run for president, or whatever the case may be. It's to get as much political capital as they possibly can by doing something so egregious that the other side, that it pits the two sides against each other. We're now saying arrest him. They're saying, what the hell were you thinking? He's a U.S. senator. It's all bullshit.
It's a ton of division, right? Keep the division going. And I do think that for the Democrats, there's an aspect of inspiring the resistance, right? We're with you, even at the U.S. Senate level. We're with you, resisting the fascism and tyranny of Trump 2.0. And they want their people to stay engaged. They want their people to show up and be in the streets. Girl, I'm out here in these streets. This is one of my favorite Kamala Harris moments, is when she was interviewing with Taraji P. Henson, and she's like, Taraji P. Henson's like, Madam Vice President, we're afraid. What are we doing? And Kamala Harris is like, girl, I'm out here in these streets, and it's like, bitch, you're not in the streets. Like, get out of here. But yeah, that's the point. That the point of this is to keep their people spun out in a position of fear, right? Remember all the Project 2025 stuff before the election? Yep. Everything they did their thing, and they had that big giant book of Project 2025 prop stunt, right? All of it, get the shore up the resistance, make sure that people can't actually start supporting the golden age. The problem that they have is that a lot of people are. Like, when it comes to immigration, which is what this is about, this conflict is about, comes to immigration, they've lost on this issue. The American people are firmly on the side of get criminal invaders out of our country, because we need to make America great again. They might not phrase it that way, all the American people, but that is what they voted for, and that is what they want to see. Legal immigrants on board with the deportations. That's devastating to Democrats. It's why their approval ratings are the lowest, I think, that they've ever been. So, yeah.
So DHS put out this statement. Senator Padilla chose disrespectful political theater and interrupted a live press conference without identifying himself or having his Senate security pin on as he lunged towards Secretary Noem. Mr. Padilla was told repeatedly to back away and did not comply with officers' repeated commands. Secret Service thought he was an attacker, and officers acted appropriately. Secretary Noem then met with Senator Padilla after and held a 15-minute meeting. And from what I gather, that's what they were supposed to do. He was there to meet with Noem, and Secretary Noem was doing a press conference, and he barged in instead of waiting for, his meeting time. He barged in and said, I am a U.S. senator. Don't touch me. Okay. F around and find out, right?
Yeah, I love that they were so rough with him. I think there needs to be more of that. And I have been corrected. Saltine Cracker said she did have to go out into the streets to pick up the collard greens for the bathtub. So,
oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Donald Trump truth this out regarding the immigration. He says the Biden administration and Governor Newsom flooded America with 21 million illegal aliens, destroying schools, hospitals, and communities, and consuming untold billions of dollars in free welfare. All of them have to go home, as do countless other illegals and criminals who will turn us into a bankrupt third world nation. America was invaded and occupied. I'm reversing the invasion. It's called remigration. Our courageous ICE officers who are daily being subjected to doxing and murder threats are heroes. We will always have their backs as they carry out this noble mission. America will be for Americans again. And he kind of brings up a great point there. I think the only federal law enforcement agency that we really should have is Parks, Border Patrol, and ICE, Immigration and Customs. And that's it. FBI gone. DHS afuera. Although
fish and wildlife,
Parks,
Bureau of Land Management.
I think we should have. Well, I think Parks would fall under Bureau of Land Management, but that's just because we do have federal land that doesn't have jurisdiction for a state law enforcement agency, and so I do think you do need law enforcement on those particular lands. Do they take it too far? Abso-freaking-lutely. I'm in this out.
Well, and there needs to be consequences for that, right? There needs to not be immunity for being a dick on the job or being overly aggressive, violating people's rights. They should, law enforcement generally should not just get away with violating people's rights. That's a massive violation of the Constitution. It's the entire purpose of the Constitution is to prevent against government overreach coming into our inalienable rights. Certainly the point of the Bill of Rights. But I don't think it's a super black and white thing, right? So my husband's best friend, he works for BLM, Bureau of Land Management, not the Black Lives Matter people. But he works on water projects and, river ecosystems and making sure that our waterways and water resources. And he is a scientist and a very passionate guy about this topic. I want him there. I want him making sure that we don't have massive corporations dumping a bunch of sewage into our rivers, and that the damming is working in such a way that it's preserving the ecosystem and servicing the needs of the people in the country. So I don't think it's a super black and white area. I think if there are corporations that are dumping toxic waste, or even people that are doing things, and that we should have some sort of law enforcement to be able to accomplish that. Do we need wholly separate law enforcement entities? No, I don't think so. But we need something, I think.
Yeah. Let's play this clip here. I love this. This is just President Trump doing President Trump and trolling the No Kings thing.
Several No Kings protests planned across the country on Saturday as well. What are your thoughts on those?
What do they go? No kings?
No Kings.
I don't feel like a king. I have to go through hell to get stuff approved. A king would say, I'm not going to get this. A king would have never had the California mandate to even be talking to him. He wouldn't have to call up Mike Johnson and Thune and say, fellas, you got to pull this off. And after years, we get it done. No, we're not a king. We're not a king at all. Thank you very much.
Oh man.
Yeah, that is one of the hardest things to stomach, and just we all just have to deal with it. But is this whiplash of hypocrisy from Democrats, right? I think it was Adam Schiff. They're arresting senators from the opposition now. This is tyranny 101. You used every lever of government to go against your political opponents at every level of government. And now it's, we can't, all of those precedents that we set, you guys can't, 100%. It's going to boomerang. Yeah, it is boomeranging. But that's one of those things that just makes me super ragey. And I want to have that emotional anger response and tell Adam Schiff all of the things that I want to say to him. But that's the point. They're openly, brazenly hypocritical on purpose because they know it's going to piss us off, and they want to make us act in a way that they can then say, see, they're violent and tyrannical and et cetera, et cetera. I also live in a state run by communists, so it doesn't feel like America first here at all. It feels like the opposite of that.
Let's jump into this clip. So yesterday, Alpha and I got into a little heated discussion about the guy that was dumping the face masks at the protests, that brought those boxes of they caught him, they arrested him, and they charged him so far with
that Alejandro guy.
Yeah, They
Yeah.
charged him with conspiracy to commit civil disorder or something like that, or promote civil disorder, something along those lines. And me and Alpha were getting into it, and I told him I don't think that gas masks, or not gas masks, face shields. I don't think giving face shields out to protesters would rise to conspiracy to commit civil disorder. But I said, I think you're going to find out a lot more about this. This guy was rolled up to get to underlying or overlying.
What kind
people.
of face masks were they?
They were just like shields. They were like safety visors that like.
So would they protect you from gas?
No.
Okay.
They're not.
Yeah.
They don't
Then
have,
I agree with you. If they were like gas mask type
Yeah,
of
I
things
would-
and they were handing them out, then I would be on the other side of that.
Yeah, I agree. But I think Alpha's right in that more is going to come out of this, but if that's all they had, if they go before a judge and they're like, Your Honor, he handed out 5 face shields, they're going to be like, what the fuck are you doing here? Are you serious? Get out of here. They'd be like handing out bottles of water to people in a protest, even if it's a riot, handing out bottles of water. It's insane. You can still look out for people's well-being, physical well-being, but there's more to it. So he was arrested. He is a Brown Beret, which Colonel Towner and Alpha have talked about quite a bit. And Kristi Noem came out yesterday and announced that IRS agents are coming out. Remember the 80,000 IRS agents, the armed IRS agents? They're coming out to investigate the financial crimes.
With their leadership. And we also have the IRS here that's helping us track how these violent protesters are funded, what NGOs out there, what unions, what other individuals may be funding these violent perpetuators that are in these protests that take people who may be wanting to come and be peaceful, but instead turn these into very violent activities that go after law enforcement. That's just simply not acceptable. And I also
All right. So IRS getting involved for the financial crime. And again, this is going to be a slippery slope because there are legitimate organizations that are, that host protests and that, this kind of stuff. And, we got to be really careful. And this is going to be controversial. I know I'm going to get pushback on this, just like I did when I said Terry Moran shouldn't have been fired. There are legitimate organizations out there on the right too. We have conservative organizations that put together, protests and stuff like that and fund it. I'm hoping that Kristi Noem is smart enough to know, and I think she is, to know that you got to focus on, like the People's Forum and the PSL and the organizations that are actually funding, the bricks that are being thrown at these events and the ones that are paying protesters to show up at these events. There's nothing wrong with, marketing a protest, but when you're telling people, and this is going viral on TikTok all over, oh, I was offered $200 to come pay protest. They're showing the Craigslist and all that stuff. Whether or not that's real, I don't know. But
we
I'm here for
can't
it.
know unless we respond to the ad and attempt to get paid.
Exactly. So I'm all for the investigation. I just don't want to see the IRS turned into like some institute. Well, it already is, but some institution that's just going to go after NGOs that are backing somebody's First Amendment right. But
yeah, I don't think there are any of those, Brian. I don't. No. So if there is one set of entities that is actually above the law, it's NGOs, because they operate as largely, right? So if you think about from an immigration standpoint, the NGOs that funnel people through the Darien Gap and get them into our country, they're funded with our tax dollars. When they get to our country, the HHS, and this isn't happening, I hope it's not happening anymore, but it has been for a very long time. The HHS then subcontracts the final placement of those people to the NGOs, the same ones that just trafficked them there to begin with. And then they, they end up basically completing the most dangerous leg of the trafficking operation on behalf of the U.S. government. But they operate as an arm of the government when the government wants them to. They operate outside the government when the government wants them to, and they have no oversight. Really no oversight. And you can't, a lot of them are religious oriented. And so you can't, the government can't go in there and pressure and ask questions in a lot of ways because of that. It is such a crooked ecosystem. And the NGOs and professional associations are the kind of connective tissue,
pass through,
right? Yeah, they're the connective tissue, the global glue that ties the regime together. I don't want the IRS going after NGOs that are just funding somebody's First Amendment rights. I don't think that exists. I really don't.
No, it
I don't
does.
think
It-
that nah, I don't.
No, there
Not
are.
in this context. Not in the context of protest and riot. I don't believe that at all.
Well, so only says steal in absolutes. There absolutely are some out there. Now, again, you're spot on, and we do have a massive, massive problem. By the way, David McKinney in the chat, Churla, that was the organization. I was losing it, and we're going to cover that in another story here. I think there are some organizations. I think there's overwhelmingly more
Name
that are
them.
in line. NGOs that are
Just
Second Amendment
one.
Foundation,
Yeah.
the
The
NRA.
Second Amendment Foundation is paying people to protest.
They've organized protests before. I don't
Are
know.
they
No.
paying people to
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
protest?
whoa! I said explicitly that paying people to protest should not be should be.
Oh, I
something
thought you said it
investigated.
did. I
No,
probably
no,
misunderstood you.
no,
I
no,
thought you
no,
were
no,
saying that was like supporting their First
no, no,
Amendment
no, no,
rights.
no.
Okay.
If you're
That
paying
was the
somebody to
reason. That was the reason for my reaction was I misunderstood you. So I apologize.
no. If you're paying somebody to protest, you don't have an organic.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be organic, and advertising your protest
You
is
can organize a
something-
protest. Yeah. Yeah. There's
Yeah,
nothing
that's what I'm
wrong with
saying.
that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, but anyways,
that's not what's happening here.
okay. So as long as we're on the same side on that,
Yeah.
you threw me off there a little bit. I was like, what?
Yeah, no, I apologize. I misunderstood you. I thought you were saying that there are like good NGOs that pay people to protest that are, that shouldn't have the IRS looking at them. And I'm like, I don't agree with. I don't think that exists. I don't think that good NGO exists.
All right. Well, let me play this video. This is it's going to be all of 15 seconds, and I just am playing it because I love to see this. Check this out.
Oh, nice. Who's that guy?
See that again. Let's see that again.
Who's the hero in white?
I don't know, but that's badass right there, man. That is
Yeah.
what's up. That
Can't
was
assault cops. You're like,
that
this
was-
is like dealing with cops 101. You can't assault
that
them.
was the WWE. That's not even WWE. That's WWF. When wrestling actually had balls, going back to the WWF, WCW, Goldberg, right? Goldberg did the spear, and The Rock did the spear. That was an excellent move right there. And let's move on because we got
some straight up fafo.
from the Los Angeles Times, and I love this right here because
Me
Ash,
too.
read the headline in red right there.
Breaking news: Judge orders Trump to return control of California National Guard to Governor Gavin Newsom. And then the headlines on the article is National Guard troops will stay under Trump's control for now under Ninth Circuit order. They had, we have this story in the brief this morning, and they had like less than 24 hours of celebrating their win, which is just delightful.
The breaking news tab was still up.
Yep.
Breaking news: Governor Gavin Newsom is getting back the national. Oh, wait, nope. Trump's got it.
Yeah.
So check this out. The emergency stay came hours after District Judge Charles Breyer of San Francisco ruled that Trump broke the law when he mobilized thousands of Guard members amid protests over immigration raids. The Ninth Circuit, a very liberal court, scheduled a Tuesday hearing. Then the National Guard will remain federalized through the weekend, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
We got this major protest going all around. And so Trump still has the Guard. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So in California, I think that big part of the celebration, at least from what I saw on social media, was that that Trump is not going to be able to deploy the National Guard on no kings. And they were celebrating this for about 5 minutes.
Wrong.
And now, it's going until Tuesday. So their entire weekend protest is subject to President Trump deploying the National Guard, which I like because I live in a town, I live adjacent to a city where they like to burn things down and engage in property damage and all other sorts of stuff. So
yep.
Airport.
Breyer wrote that Trump's actions, quote, were illegal, both exceeding the scope of his statutory authority and violating the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Yeah, he is. So,
yeah, right? Troubled by the implication inherent in the Trump administration's argument that protests against the federal government, a core civil liberty protected by the First Amendment, can justify a finding of rebellion. Oh, my goodness. California Attorney General Rob Bonta said, quote, "We aren't living in the throes of a rebellion. We are not under the threat of an invasion." No, we're not under the threat of an
We're in
invasion.
an active one.
We're in an active invasion.
Yeah.
He secured the leak. Right now, we're just draining all the water that accumulated from the leak.
Bucketing out. What do you call that?
Like,
there's a word for that when you're
bilge?
bailing out the water. Yeah.
Yeah, Trump is the bilge pump on the boat right now. You got you forgot to put the plug in your boat before you launched it. Well, you run out there and you stick your arm in the water and try and put the plug in to stop the water from pouring in, and then you got to bilge it out. You got to bail it out, and that's what we're doing right now.
Bilge. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
No, bailing is correct. Bilge is the
pump.
actual. No, bilge is the accumulation of the water. Like, it's nasty,
Is
gross.
that so? The bilge pump is
Pumps out bilge.
to pump out the bilge. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Cool.
As far as I know, and I've grown up around boats my whole life. That's how I've always referred to it. It stinks. You ever smell bilge? Oh, it varies from boat to boat, but it's awful. We are not under threat of invasion. Nothing is preventing the federal government from enforcing federal law, except your entire state.
Yeah, except state officials and their authorities.
Tim Walz
listen, this is a 10th Amendment violation. I don't think there's any question about that. But the reality is that none of the 50 states, and I've gone back and forth with Michael Bolton of the 10th Amendment Center on this, like none of the 50 states are operating from a constitutional standpoint. Federal government up to this point hasn't been operating from a constitutional standpoint. I would like to get back to where the Bill of Rights actually has meaning and shall not be infringed, right? And won't be stepped on. But we're going to have to do some work to get there. And so, we can't. Am I in Colorado supposed to say, no, Trump, don't come in here and arrest the corrupted criminals because the Constitution says that my state has a right to be led by corrupted criminals? I don't think so. I don't think I'm under any obligation when nobody anywhere is operating out of a constitutional authority that I'm meant to hold that arbitrary freaking line. If we had a constitutional government, then I would have a different answer. But
hold the 10th Amendment thought for a second, because I want to push back on that. Quote, we're talking, and this is from Breyer's ruling. Quote, we're talking about the president exercising his authority. And of course, the president is limited in his authority. That's the difference between the president and King George. Of course, you got to throw King George in ahead of, that's a perfect quote for them to put in.
They really want that. And they want those optics. They want that. That's why I think this is going to get real violent this weekend, because they're going to make it that way because they're want the optics.
They're doing everything you got judges trying to stir the pot. The protests in Los Angeles fall far short of a rebellion, Breyer wrote. There were instances of violence, he said, but the Trump administration did not identify, quote, a violent, armed, organized, open, and avowed uprising against the government as a whole. That is not the barrier that President Trump has to get to. Right. It says Title 10 also requires that orders from the president, quote, be issued through the governors of the states. Fair enough. It's happened twice before where a president has unilaterally federalized the National Guard without the consent of the governor. It happened in, I think it was 1957 with Eisenhower was that Little Rock? I think it was in Little Rock, where he federalized the National Guard. And it also happened with LBJ in Alabama over the civil rights movement, the desegregation, when he federalized the National Guard against, I think it was George Wallace was the governor at the time, and said, we're coming in there. Now, to be fair, both of those presidents invoked the Insurrection Act. Now, if Trump is going to go that route, I don't know. To be honest with you, I think he should have invoked the Insurrection Act when Newsom refused to do anything on this. But to your point on the 10th Amendment, I think
he should have invoked the Insurrection Act on November 3rd, 2020, and also maybe he did.
Yeah. Well, that was another point I was going to make is, there's a consortium here at Badlands, I believe he did invoke the Insurrection Act, and that just because he invoked it doesn't mean it's going to be public to everybody. I don't know. But going back to the 10th Amendment thing, here's the only argument I would push back on with the 10th Amendment is I don't think the federal government is overreaching in this regard, because they do have an obligation under the Constitution to protect our borders. And just because, these people aren't on crossing the border actively, they've already done that and they need to be accountable for that. And I think the federal government does have broad sweeping authority to right that wrong, to mitigate that situation and to rectify it. And I think so. I don't necessarily think that going and arresting these illegal migrants once they've been, and remember, this whole thing started on a completely
100%,
legal
100% agree on protecting the border. When you're talking about conducting law enforcement operations inside of the interior in these 50 states, I think it's a grayer area. And somebody else dropped the guarantee clause into the chat, and I think that there's an argument to be made for the guarantee clause. I also think the guarantee clause is overused as much as, if not more than, the supremacy clause to justify overreach. So,
How about the welfare clause? General welfare.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Another
I
big
mean,
one.
that's just, we need to strike that shit.
Did you yesterday we played the clip of Nancy Pelosi. Did you see Nancy Pelosi telling us that we have 10 articles in the Constitution now, apparently?
Oh, I did. I saw you guys talking about that. Yeah.
I hope the president reads Article 10 of the Constitution. Nancy, that doesn't go have another shot of
She
Tito's.
means the 10th Amendment. Let's give
Oh, no, she didn't. No, she didn't. She meant
No?
she meant Title 10. She meant Title 10 of U.S. Code. Title 10, 1240.
What were her comments? Like, I hope he
She
reads
said,
the Article 10. What did she say?
well, because she said this is a president that said he doesn't have to obey the Constitution. And I would hope that he would read Article 10 of the Constitution, Section 1246, 40 as in 40, not 46, but 406, which is this one right here, which we talked about yesterday as well. And I'm just going to rehash it real quick. 10 U.S. Code 1246, National Guard and Federal Service. That's what she was talking about, that he doesn't have the authority to do this without Newsom's permission. And technically, she is correct. However,
yeah,
this is where we get into a situation where if the government refuses to act and it's something that the president has authority under the Constitution to assert, federal resources on, like an invasion and illegal migrants invading our country, then I think he's justified in doing this. And one of the stipulations of this, it doesn't have to be rebellion. I don't know why they keep saying, rebellion and all that. It says right here, the president may call into federal service members. Oh, no, excuse me, right here. The president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States.
Yeah.
And so when you have ICE and everybody else over there and they're being stopped by protests that are enabled by a lack of a response from law enforcement, a lack of response from the mayor, a lack of response from the governor, what other choice does he have at that point to carry out his obligations under the Constitution?
Yeah, no, I think it's an excellent point. Also, think about that one line. Pull that back up.
Yeah.
That the president is unable to faithfully execute, or unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. So he has to have the National Guard brought in because, he doesn't have the regular forces are insufficient to deal with the conflict. What my head immediately thought of and it's not a National Guard issue, but what my head immediately thought of is all these district judges that are preventing him from executing the laws of the United States. What's going to happen with that? I mean, there was another one, the voting thing. I sent it to you in Telegram this morning. A federal judge in Massachusetts just enjoined enforcing voter ID.
Wow.
Yeah, like this is the kind of stuff where we have federal judges that are openly defying the authorities of the executive and attempting to prevent President Trump from, to Article 4, Section 4, guaranteeing us a Republican form of government. We don't have one right now, right? Because elections are fake and our democracy is bullshit. So, it's we're in uncharted waters and unprecedented territory when it comes not to what the president is doing, because there's precedent for pretty much everything that the president is doing. We're in uncharted territories when it comes to the opposition. I think closest thing is probably the run up to the Civil War.
Yeah. I want to just read this one part. It says, so the president may call into federal service members of units and units of the National Guard of any state and such that he considers in such numbers as he considers necessary to repel the invasion, suppress the rebellion, or execute those laws. Okay, so he has the authority to do this. Orders for these purposes shall be issued. Now, Ash, when you see shall, that means you must do this, right?
Yep.
You must. Orders for these purposes shall be issued through the governors of the states, or in the case of DC, through the whatever. Here's the thing. If you're saying that orders for these purposes shall be issued through the governors of the states, and you're giving the president the authority to do this, Newsom doesn't have a choice. If President Trump says you must deploy the National Guard, Newsom has to do it. He's the commander-in-chief of the National Guard still. And once he determines that it needs to be federalized in order to, quell the rebellion or invasion, which and execute federal laws, which the latter two, President Trump is doing this. I don't think it's a rebellion. I do think it's an invasion, and I do think that they need to be able to execute federal laws. So if Governor Newsom says, no, I'm not going to do it, you don't have you're not afforded the right to deny that order unless it's an unlawful order. Is it an unlawful order? That becomes the question. No, it's not. It's not an unlawful order. If ICE can't conduct the work that they are doing, lawful work, then you have no choice but to mobilize the National Guard. And he didn't do it. So President Trump said, F off, I'm doing it.
Yeah. I'm enjoying the show.
It's a great show. All right. We
should get out of here.
No, we can go overtime today. John's not. I don't think there's a Daily Herald, or it's pre-recorded. It's pre-recorded, so he doesn't.
Oh, okay. Because Ghost is on. I was going to tell people because a lot of people, when we were talking about Iran, are like, "What is Ghost saying?" Ghost is going to be on the Daily Herald today, so people should watch.
Yeah, I've got two more stories left. One is just ridiculous, but this one's interesting. From Just the News, LA mayor, and we've talked about this before, but I just want to cover some extra things that I haven't seen yet about this. LA mayor once joined pro-Cuba communist group. Now it's part of a CCP-linked network behind the protests. The far-left brigade of pro-communist Cuba activists, which Karen Bass was a key member of years ago, is currently embedded in the Chinese Communist Party-linked financial network that is behind the LA protest. Decades ago, Bass was a member and repeatedly identified as a leader in Venceremos Brigade, a far-left activist group which U.S. intelligence and law enforcement agencies, as well as Cuban defectors, have identified as being co-opted by Cuban intelligence services. The VB was also linked to violent groups such as the Weather Underground. Nowadays, the VB is fiscally sponsored by Manhattan-based communist organization known as the People's Forum, which is part of the wealthy Marxist businessman Neville Singham's broad financial network. And Una Panuna Banca yesterday saying that she's going to subpoena Neville Singham was the epitome of hilarity. Yes, go ahead and do it.
I have to follow. I didn't have it right. I had it. I love that you saw me immediately jump into action.
I was like, I know you're going to do it. So, jump down here. David Atlee Phillips, the chief of the Latin American division of the CIA until 1975, penned an article in 1982 where he assessed that communist Cuba's intelligence directorate, the DGI, said, quote, psychological warfare experts consider the DGI-sponsored Venceremos, We Will Win Brigade one of the most successful covert political operations in modern history. Some 2,500 Americans in 10 contingents visited Cuba between 1969 and 1977. Karen Bass was among that organization at that time. The ostensible purpose was to cut Cuban sugarcane. In fact, the Americans were encouraged to destroy their own society. Let me correct myself real quick. I don't know for sure that she was there in that time because it does say in the 1970s, Bass was one of them. So yeah, okay, she is one of them. The FBI assessed that the DGI's goal, now listen to this, quote, is the recruitment of individuals who are politically oriented and who someday may obtain a position, elective or appointive, somewhere in the U.S. government, which would provide the Cuban government with access to political, economic, and military intelligence. I think she needs to be investigated pretty heavily. So.
I think we can't make America great again unless we're going to deal with the corruption problem.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And then, I did forget. Well, I have two more Israel stories for the very end that are just, I just want to go over it. So while all this is going on, the sheer craziness of everything that's taking place right now. Republicans destroy Democrats in congressional baseball game, winning for the 5th straight year. This is a real story. Now, I do want to give a hat tip here because this is actually a pretty damn good play by Representative Pfluger.
Do you think it's the soy?
The soy?
Yeah, why Democrats can't win a baseball game.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's because they're all a bunch of beta bitches.
Yeah.
And how about Augie? What a move there. Stab, dive, done.
And you're out.
Bottom of the first after this. And how about Augie? What a move there. Stab, dive, done.
I'm surprised they can find a bunch of congressmen that are young enough to play baseball. Not softball, but baseball.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they have the time to engage in that, because we don't need them to do that. We need them to do their job.
I know. It's so hilarious to see all of everything going on right now. And what are they doing? They're playing in a baseball game.
And it's not just that, right? It's all the stunts. It's the media appearances. Congress people are, and Chris talks about this, basically social media influencers. They're out there being social media influencers. I'm sorry, we don't need that. So maybe we just get rid of them. Also, we could arrest them and replace them with actual Americans and not traitorous scum. So
yep. Yeah. I'm gonna run for Congress just so I can play in that baseball game, because I would love to kick the shit out of some Democrats with a bat and ball.
That would be fun. I would play in the baseball game too. Yeah. I want to run for Congress so I can debate Lauren Boebert.
I actually want to go back and watch the game and see how awful this game was. Cause I get a softball game. I get that. I mean, softball is a significant step down from baseball. But anyways, all right. Last two stories, just headlines. BRICS news just in. Israel began striking Iran again and says the operation could last for 2 weeks. And then somebody had put this in Rumble Rant, so I wanted to highlight it. My good friend Behizi. Iran has been months and weeks away from making a nuclear bomb for over 30 years. Either way, either they're slower than Gary the snail from SpongeBob, or the people telling us they're making one are lying. If we go by the preponderance of evidence standard, Netanyahu is lying. Man, Behizi, he put this up before the show, actually, so I can't say that he's watching and taking our takes. But I said, change the name from Strength of the Lion to Strength of the Lying, because Netanyahu is lying. Mm-hmm. How do we know that that their nukes are going towards weapons? Because you have both sides saying against each other. And for the last 5 years, they've said we're days away. For the last 30 years, they've been saying we're just a short time away. And he literally puts the timeline in here. So a great post from Behizi here. Awesome to see. All right. Yeah. That's all I've got. Hit the thumbs up, folks, if you have not done so. We'll get into Rumble Rants real quick. We have exactly 4,000. It was exactly 5,000. Now it just dipped below. So hit that thumbs up.
We have 864 on Twitter.
Yeah, 1.27 thousand thumbs up. So let's get better than that. Trump 2020 for us. Good morning, baddies. Thanks, Ash, for covering Lindell.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
All right. C. Meadows, Netanyahu is Israeli deep state, and that's the tweet there. Thank you, C. Meadows. Appreciate that. Wilson Chick or Wilson Chic? Which one is it?
Chic.
Is it Chic?
Say it as Chic.
Okay.
Is there a K on the end of it? I can't read it.
No.
Then it's Chic.
Oh, I like Chick better.
Chick has Wilson, a K on the end of it.
Yeah, but it could. Yeah, okay. Wilson Chic. Ash, I'm in the communist state of Maryland. It's ridiculous, and I will not back down. Where we go one, we go all.
Solidarity, sister. I'm with you.
Amen. Ellen Springer on AWK episode dated 6/9/25. Lieutenant LT clipped a piece from January 2017 where the National Guard General is talking about the peaceful transition of power to the military. See the 8-minute 30 mark. 8-minute 30-second mark, 1 hour and 10 minutes. Interesting. I will check that out. That's from 6/9/25. I will check that out. Thank you so much, Ellen Springer. And thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Please hit that thumbs up. Tune into Why We Vote tonight. Ash will be on for sure. I'm going to see if I can try and join. I'll be on the road, but I will have my lapel mic because I have to do some recording while I'm at my mom's house. But yeah, I will try and jump on there as well. But guys, last and most importantly, keep your head on a swivel, but calmer heads prevail. Keep your cool. Everything's all right. This is going to be, I think this is going to be, at least if you're watching the news, this is going to be a really chaotic weekend. If there was ever a weekend to unplug and just like goose fraba and just chill, maybe this is the good weekend for that.
We have one more come in. My favorite tube stroker. Haven't been able to shit stir for a while, so just wanted to say hi, Semper Fi Devil. That's AZ Warbear.
Semper frickin' Fi. Tube stroker is a nickname for Mortarman.
Is there anything over on YouTube? Just checking real quick.
No, YouTube pops up in the comments. So
yeah, I was just looking.
And thank you to all the people over there on YouTube. Please hit that thumbs up on YouTube as well. Share this show out, and we will see you guys on maybe tonight, but definitely on Monday.
See you tonight. I will be talking about the Lindell trial with Holly at Altitude at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Why We Vote. And then we've got Liberty done tonight. So stay tuned to Badlands Media, guys.
Yes. And lastly, happy birthday, President Trump. Happy birthday to my Army dogs. Happy birthday to the American flag, because Ash designated it Flag Birthday.
It is Flag Birthday. That's what we're calling it.
And happy Father's Day to everybody out there, all the dads out there. Make sure you call your dad, and yeah, have a great weekend, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.